Funding for Schaeferless is provided by Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Last time on the Star Wars The Clone Wars retrospective that me and Pappy G do, we watched Season 1. It was pretty good, but not amazing. I'm sure you've heard this before, but Clone Wars is one of those miraculous shows that only gets better as it goes along, rather than losing steam and getting worse. And as you can probably guess as a result of that statement, Season 2 is definitely an improvement over Season 1. If you manage to like Season 1 in spite of its shortcomings, you'll definitely like Season 2. Unless you're us as kids for some reason. Yeah, I don't know why, but Patrick and I didn't care for Season 2 as much when we were kids. It had a ton of episodes we liked, but it kind of trades the non-stop Saturday morning cartoon action and excitement in for more mature and subdued storylines. Plus a few arcs that we thought went on a little ttoo long. Looking at you, Geonosis 5-parter. But now that we're adults and can look at the season more critically, yeah, no, we were dead wrong. It's absolutely an improvement over Season 1. The characters are more interesting, the conflicts are more compelling, the animation continues to improve, and overall, Season 2, despite being far from the best season of the show, is the only one where I can't call a single episode bad. The later seasons are obviously better, but they all do have at least one really bad episode. Whereas with this one, there's definitely some weaker ones, but none I outright dislike, surprisingly. It's easily the most consistent season of the show.
He copied my thoughts that I first put in the outro. Did he forget what I said 5 minutes ago in the time this script was being made and just subconsciously remembered the good points I made?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. I forgore. Remember, kids, it's not plagiarism if you forgore where you got those ideas from.
It's like he's begging for me to become a supervillain again. But the fact still stands. Season 2 is great, and if it automatically gets ranked lower than the other seasons, that does not speak to this season being bad. That only means that the show keeps increasing in quality. However, whenever we rank all the seasons at the very end of this whole retrospective, this season will get a medal for achieving a perfect run, i.e., not a single bad episode. I don't know how a season with that sort of award is the one that we consider to be the worst as kids. I suppose that's only natural. We were dumb enough to think Attack of the Clones was cool as kids. So it's time we rectify the sins of our past and explain why this season isn't Bantha Poodoo. I see no point in delaying this video any longer. Here's the retrospective of Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 2, Rise of the Bounty Hunters. That's the tagline they gave this season. I like it, given how bounty hunter heavy this season is. Actually, let's not get started because at the end of the last episode, I said that any named clone death I missed would be covered next time. Well, it's next time right now, and I missed a lot of names. In my defense, I asked for help from the comments, but nobody told me I missed any. So I'm just gonna say that we all took an L. But not as big an L as these clones did. Looks like Tags filling a body bag. Mac got attacked. Tucker is a sucker. Slammer slammed his ship into blaster fire. Nub became the dinner at Yub Nub's. Droid bait. That's impossible. You cannot think of a pun involving the name droid bait. Let's just get to the first episode.
Season 2 of Clone Wars starts off with a banger arc, featuring the return of Cad Bane. If the Season 1 finale wasn't enough to convince you that this guy was the most badass bounty hunter in the galaxy, hopefully this 3-part arc does. It starts out with Ahsoka making mistakes during a battle and getting reprimanded for it. Again, much like the first episode of the Ryloth arc last season. It's great to see the show acknowledge her shortcomings and naivete, since that's the first step to her growing into a more mature and capable character. As punishment, she's put on library duty with Jocasta Nu. Remember her? That snide know-it-all librarian bitch from Attack of the Clones?
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
Yeah, okay. Fucking dumbass doesn't even know where Kamino is, SMH.
Naturally, Ahsoka is bored of her library duties, but things are about to escalate because Bane is hired to steal a holocron from the Jedi archives by none other than Darth Hideous himself. It says a lot about Cad Bane that he directly gets contacted by Palpy instead of Dooku or Grievous. That's how you know this guy is good. Now, as a kid, James and I thought that the reason Palpatine hired Cad Bane was because of the stellar performance he unknowingly put on for Palpatine with Hostage Crisis. But this episode actually takes place before that episode. We were kind of dumb because we didn't realize that he doesn't know Skywalker in this episode, unlike in Hostage Crisis. And the Jedi talk about Bane as though they've never heard of him before. So this episode is a prequel. But can you really blame us for getting confused when this episode introduces Cad Bane's reluctant service droid Todo, who shows up later in a season 3 episode, which takes place after Hostage Crisis, but spoiler alert, Todo explodes in this episode. Naturally, we thought that the episode which takes place after Hostage Crisis would take place before this episode because of Todo still being alive. In actuality, Todo dies in this episode, but off screen, Todo was apparently rebuilt by Anakin so they could learn more about Cad Bane's whereabouts, somehow escapes captivity, decided to continue to work for his abuser who just blew him up. And that's why Todo appears in episodes that take place after this one. We're only one season in, and the timeline of this anthology setup is already way too confounding for an 8-year-old to wrap their head around. Speaking of not being able to wrap my head around something, why is Zam Wesell a changeling at all if it has no point in the story? Another thing that Clone Wars does that the prequels don't is actually utilize the shape-shifting abilities of this OP species. Cad Bane hires a changeling to disguise themselves as a Jedi and then later as the old hag Jocasta. Watch out, Ahsoka! There's a pretender amidst you!
It all leads to a super fun heist episode where Bane gets away with the holocron, even though Todo died temporarily and the changeling is captured. But she does reveal who Bane's next target is.
Bala. Rapal.
Now, I can't tell you why, but for some reason, Patrick and I always found the way they said these lines extremely funny, and we quoted them all the time. I still don't get it. It really isn't that funny of a line delivery. But on the other hand, Bala, Rapal. That's still comedy, I think. Anyway, moving on to episode 2, which is probably the best of this 3-part arc. It's a classic Republic versus Separatists infiltration battle, except the Separatist commander is Cad Bane, which is way more epic than having some random clown like General Lockdurd of the Separatist Alliance. There are some cool battles in this one, a great dynamic between Anakin and Ahsoka, and also Cad Bane electrocutes a Jedi to death on screen. I've never heard a more depressed battle droid than the one in this episode that announces Bala Rapal is dead. Yeah, even early on, Clone Wars isn't fucking around with the frightening death scenes it presents us with. It's pretty intense stuff. Not a ton else to say about this episode. It's just extremely solid from beginning to end.
I still have a problem with this episode. Okay, so Ahsoka goes after Bane by herself despite Anakin telling her not to. Insert "we'll take him together, I'm taking him now" joke, followed by, again it's like poetry, sort of, they rhyme. She gets captured and Anakin then rescues her, but Cad Bane escapes with the unlocked holocron. Anakin charges on his own to get it back, leaving Ahsoka to be the one who tells him to be patient, as though she literally didn't do the exact same thing like 5 minutes ago. Then, when they're all on the ship escaping, this clone says that they didn't get the holocron back, so Ahsoka almost jumps out of the ship to get the holocron, even though the cruiser they're on is about to explode in like 12 seconds. Anakin stops her from being reckless after she stopped him from being reckless after he failed to stop her from being reckless. I don't understand. Is she learning a lesson or not?
Nah, see, it's because now she knows where the holocron is, because it's right where Cad Bane's body fell, but before they had to go chase him to get it back, and they wouldn't have enough time to escape. SMH, pay attention to the episode more.
Whatever. What's important is that Anakin still seems to sense Bane's presence, despite him witnessing Denal shoot him. I guess he's in denial about him being dead. And Coho, more like, oh no, you died off screen. So yeah, big shot Cad Bane disguises himself as the clone, knees Ahsoka in the pelvis, and leaves, with the fully unlocked holocron in Palpy's possession. This episode is about the next part of his plan. kidnapping children?
I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let the Sith die. But yeah, Palpatine wants some Force-sensitive children that he can train to be dark side spies. Which, isn't that just the Inquisitors from Rebels? That's some neat foreshadowing. However, after the Jedi capture Cad Bane and nearly explode his mind...
No! Get out of my head!
Anakin and Ahsoka manage to deduce where the children are, and they go there to save them. Where is there, by the way? Mustafar, of course. It is a volcanic planet. And it's neat that it actually showed up in the Clone Wars in some capacity, even if it was just for a few episodes, this one being the first. Meanwhile, Cad Bane leads Obi-Wan and Mace Windu to the holocron, but and he gets away. Damn. But the kids are safe, and Palpatine's plan has been foiled. For now.
Wait, the only reason Palpatine's plans are halted for the time being is because he didn't make a copy of the data that was on the holocron. Why not?
Because sometimes he does not smart things. He's a bit silly, that one. Oh well, banger arc to start the season with. So much fun. I will say, Hostage Crisis in general was probably a more effective example of how badass Cad Bane is, since everything in that episode goes right for him. But in this arc, he does make a couple mistakes and gets put in vulnerable positions here and there, which I didn't really like as a kid, because in my mind, he was just this invincible badass. It's kind of like if he was badass and stoic and awesome in a movie, only to get hit in the back by a blind man and scream like a baby as he flies through the air and falls into a giant vagina in the desert in the next movie. Just as a random, non-specific example. But nowadays, I kind of like how he and the Jedi are on equal footing. It's more realistic, and the fact that he still manages to keep up with them and get away with a lot of stuff is still pretty badass. So yeah, Cad Bane is awesome, and that's it from him for the entire season. He never comes back in season 2. That was more than a little disappointing, but hey, at least the next episode has relationship drama. My favorite thing about Star Wars.
To be fair, this is definitely the most natural Anakin and Padme's relationship has ever felt. Probably because Anakin's actually charismatic and not a literal child or a man-child. When Anakin calls Padme's place home, that's really wholesome. But this scene kind of reiterates the fact that their marriage is very dysfunctional, considering that there's a war going on, and Anakin usually isn't here. He has to go on missions and mission briefings where he learns information like Padme's ex-boyfriend is possibly a spy for the Separatists. Oh, also the fact that Padme has an ex-boyfriend, which he's the last to know. Even Yoda knew for some reason. So while the opening of this episode is sweet because of Anakin and Padme's natural chemistry, it kind of devolves into a typical jealous boyfriend love triangle story. And it doesn't help that Clovis's personality is 75% I'm a simp for Padme, and the other 25% is the banking clan will sign your treaty.
Aside from that, it's an alright espionage episode where Padme gets poisoned, then unpoisoned, and then somewhere along the lines she finds out about a new droid factory the Separatists are building on Geonosis. And that's perhaps the craziest thing about this episode. It's actually the beginning of a 5-part arc centered around another battle of Geonosis that includes not only taking this droid factory down, but also dealing with fucking zombies that came from a worm parasite that takes over people's brains. This arc started with Anakin bringing dinner home for Padme, and it ended with a zombie invasion. That's actually kind of incredible, but we'll get to that when we get to it.
There's not much left to say about this episode in particular. It's fine. I love the part where Anakin, with Padme and the factory plans in tow, leaves Clovis alone with a battalion of battle droids pointing their guns at the traitor. This definitely seems like a situation where, as soon as we switch to the next scene with Anakin and Padme, Clovis is dead. But no. In Season 6, somehow, Clovis returns. And that arc, whoo boy does it handle the love triangle dynamic way better. I never would have thought that this one filler episode in Season 2 would be essential viewing for one of the late game arcs that gets Palpatine's plan unsettlingly close to completion.
I'm so thirsty all of a sudden, and my head is pounding.
Oh, you poor thing.
It's the climate change.
Moving right along to episode 5, this is kind of a huge 180 from the previous episode. Instead of political intrigue and espionage, it's just one full-blown action sequence. This episode was said to take heavy inspiration from D-Day, as well as movies like Saving Private Ryan, and it's very cool to see a show called The Clone Wars go all out on the war front. The sequence where they're just trying to land on Geonosis is so effective because of the lack of music. It really heightens the tension and makes the entire landing sequence feel way more visceral and immediate. There's also a cute running gag where Anakin and Ahsoka are competing to see who can kill more droids, only for Coyote-Mundi to swoop in at the end out of nowhere and win the #1 victory royale.
Great. What do I win?
I'll have your earring cut off!
What?
Oh my god, you guys, Anakin and Ahsoka are such a cute sibling pair. I hope they don't get separated, leading to Anakin worrying about her safety. The next episode is about Ahsoka sneaking into the droid factory to blow it up from the inside, leaving Anakin to worry about her safety. Now we are reaching episodes where there's more meat to the analysis. The show, up until this point, has mainly been just me and James saying, oh, this episode, or this concept, or this scene is so cool. Now we get some heavy foreshadowing into Anakin's major character flaws. He loves Ahsoka, so he's kind of overprotected of her. It lines up perfectly with his not wanting any loved ones to die mantra after his mother died, and his desire to keep Ahsoka safe is juxtaposed with Luminara's relationship with her apprentice. Unlike Anakin and Ahsoka, where their relationship is personal, Luminara's relationship with her apprentice Barriss is completely business-oriented. Technically, she is following the Jedi way of not letting her attachments get to her, as she's completely fine sending her apprentice in precarious situations, but that's not an ideal relationship either. Anakin cares too much, and Luminara cares too little. Anakin can care for Ahsoka. The problem is that his desire to protect others brings out the worst in him. Meanwhile, the Jedi Order is filled with a bunch of apathetic hypocrites because if they don't care about their own ranks, then they'll easily lose sight of why it is they're fighting in the first place, not caring about the people they're supposed to protect. Barriss seems to have a much better idea as to what she's fighting for, as when she and Ahsoka are trapped under rubble with no hope of escape, she tries to put Ahsoka at ease by saying that they saved the lives of thousands by destroying this droid factory. Barriss is more than willing to take drastic measures for the greater good.
Shut it!
Ahsoka, however, has still inherited Anakin's desire to save everyone, and in this case, it pans out, as thanks to her, the two Padawans are saved, and Anakin's all like, see, I told you we shouldn't give up to Luminara, but then she poses the heavy question of whether or not Anakin is willing to let Ahsoka go if the time comes. And he just nods his head no. At least he's honest about it.
This is a crucial early example of how Anakin fundamentally disagrees with aspects of the Jedi Order. An idea that was meant to be one of the main cruxes of the prequels, but wasn't quite fully developed there. It's touched on, but Anakin's primary motivation to leave the Jedi Order in those movies is to save Padme from dying. This show expands on the idea that Anakin just doesn't jive with the Jedi Order's teachings of emotional detachment, and that he refuses to give up on the ones he loves. And this love can lead him to some pretty dark places, as we'll see later in the arc. But for now, this episode is a solid enough entry. It introduces the super tanks, which are the most OP vehicle in LEGO Star Wars 3 The Clone Wars, so that's pretty cool. Anyway though, the droid factory on Geonosis is blowed up now, so I guess that's the end of the arc, right? I mean, so far no arc in the show has ever exceeded 3 episodes, right? Well, fuck you, man. This one's 5. I told you this already. This is the longest arc in the entire show, actually. They never pulled another 5-parter again. Kinda wild that they dropped the longest arc in season 2 of all places. Okay, enough stalling. You're here for the zombie shit. Yeah, so Luminara chases after the Geonosian leader Poggle the Lesser. I just want to say as a side note, this isn't in the script, but when I showed this episode to my friends, they all just laughed at the fact that this guy's name is Poggle. Like Pog. Like George Lucas predicted Pog being a meme. Just good work. Amazing. In order to find Poggle, Luminara must go to the catacombs. While down there, she gets captured by Geonosian zombies who have been reanimated by brainworms. This is the last thing I expected to see in Star Wars, but yep, Star Wars has zombies now. You're welcome. Anakin and Obi-Wan lead a mission to go find her, and a few of their clones get got by the zombies.
Wow, that's a big buzzing bug to buzz into Buzz's face, but Buzz Lightyear to infinity and beyond. Buzz. Hey, what's the buzz? What's the buzz? Tell me what's happening, Buzz.
Man, we really haven't done one of these videos in a while. You've completely forgotten how to make puns out of each clone dying.
You come up with one for Gear Shift then.
Okay, looks like Gear Shift is shifting into death. Yeah, I don't know. That's all I got.
The hell is that?
Oh yeah, we meet the Geonosian Queen down here, and she lays eggs, and she's disgusting, and also she speaks English for some reason. Yeah, a fun little quirk of Clone Wars is that, unlike the movies, they never wanted to have subtitles appear on screen ever. If a legacy character who never spoke English in the movies, like Jabba, or in this case Pago the Lesser, appears on screen, all their dialogue gets translated by a droid. But if they're introducing a new character, even one of the same species as a character that never spoke English, you better believe that new fucker's speaking English. Subtitles are hard, LMAO.
There's no budget for subtitles.
Usually that doesn't bother me, but I think it's kind of absurd that this monstrosity that probably never left this catacomb and probably never interacted with a non-Geonosian until now speaks English perfectly, while the political leader of Geonosis doesn't. It's very weird and random.
You know, the existence of the Queen is more horrifying the more you think about it. As she reveals with her totally out of place English speaking, she can use the brainworms to not only reanimate her own species, but take over the minds of anyone they enter. A process which Obi-Wan is uncomfortably eager to witness.
No, wait. I want to see how it works. I don't think Luminara wants to see how it works.
Yeah, I'm with Anakin on this one. I don't want to see how this thing works. These worms are so powerful, it makes you wonder, is this Queen playing some sort of long game? Poggle's teamed up with the Separatists now, but what's stopping him from unleashing worms on all the other Separatist leaders, working their way up to Dooku, and then the Queen could control the entire galaxy? Of course, we don't have any evidence that this is what the Queen is planning. Even so, controlling all the Jedi with these brainworms is enough for me to say that they really should destroy the entire Geonosian race. I don't care that they're sentient. Only people have human rights.
Yeah, this planet really is rotten from the inside out. But this was a cool episode. We saved Luminara, killed the fucking Queen with a cave-in, and captured Poggle, since, you know, he has plot armor since he lives to die in Revenge of the Sith. I guess everything is all wrapped up now. Oh my god! Alright, now we've come to a phenomenal episode, for so many reasons. Basically, one of the clones is infected with the brainworm, and now he's on the ship with Ahsoka and Barriss, heading to a medical facility. It looks like we have a pretender amidst us, cause soon the entire clone brigade is infected.
But before that can happen, Ahsoka and Barriss have a heart-to-heart at the cafeteria where they ponder what exactly comes next for the Jedi after the war. Ahsoka and Barriss haven't had the normal Jedi training that most have had. They're basically being raised as soldiers, not peacekeepers, so they're rightfully questioning what exactly the difference is for the Jedi. Furthermore, what will the Jedi do after the war? In The Phantom Menace, the Jedi are shown to be ineffectual, as they weren't up for helping Naboo because the Senate didn't tell them they could. This lax nature of the Republic is one of the factors that let the Separatists get away with creating an army right under their noses. In order to prevent another civil war like this, the correct option might seem to be that the Republic and the Jedi should take a more proactive approach in snuffing out threats before they can become threats. But operating like that would just turn them into a fascist dictatorship.
Well, if it works.
Yeah, Ahsoka is blunt in stating the facts. Anakin should not state his political opinions online. Peacetime would not suit him because he probably would want to take more drastic measures to ensure a war like this never breaks out again. But I don't think he would do anything drastic. He's still a caring individual. As long as his loved ones are okay, he won't do anything super dark.
Haha! Yeah. Oh well. We all know what ends up happening to Anakin, but let's just hope neither of these two gets radicalized in the future. Oh yeah, also there's zombies. This episode goes fucking hard, man. The imagery here is kind of horrific. Plus Barriss literally has to murder one of the mind-controlled troopers.
Well, I guess Barriss sprung the trap! I still got it!
Eventually, Barriss is captured and infected, with one of the zombified clones saying this.
If there's one thing we clones know,
is how to stop a Jedi.
Gee, I wonder if that's foreshadowing for anything. It's like the worms have full use of everything in the clones' brains, including stuff that the clones might not know themselves.
To stop the brain worms, Ahsoka needed to vent. She then makes it to the place on the ship where she can rupture the coolant system because the weakness of the brain worms is the cold. But it's also her weakness because she never wears a shirt. They literally show she has one in the episode where she had to go out into the cold vacuum of space, so why not wear it? I guess a better question is, how did she know how to stop the brain worms? Well...
This episode is the first time in this show that we get to see Anakin start to get influenced by the dark side. And it's so smart because it's all in line with the reason he joins the dark side in the first place in Revenge of the Sith. It's because of his desire to protect the ones he loves. He goes to such sinister lengths to ensure their safety, and we get our canonical first glimpse of that here. In order to save Ahsoka, Anakin interrogates Poggers on the brain worm's weakness. And since Jedi mind tricks don't work, he just goes all out and decks him in the face with his metallic hands. He then follows it up by force choking the bitch. The show knows exactly how significant this moment is, and thus, the Imperial March starts playing in the background as he approaches PogChamp and he starts the chokening. He even says, "Leave us," in the same manner as his future master. An amazing taste of what's to come for this tragic character. And the way he dismisses the other Jedi's concerns regarding how he managed to get this information, it's just tremendous. How did they manage to cram so much amazing, important content into a single episode about Zombos and Amogus? It's absolutely fantastic.
Meanwhile, Ahsoka successfully freezes all the worms to death. But the one in Barriss is a stubborn little bugger, so the two of them have a deadly lightsaber duel, in which Barriss temporarily takes control again and begs Ahsoka to kill her. This is a show for children. This episode follows up on Ahsoka and Barriss' characterizations in the Droid Factory episode. Barriss is willing to put her life on the line to save as many lives as possible. Ahsoka refuses to let anyone die, so she kills the brain worm without harming Barriss. Despite everything working out, Ahsoka laments to Anakin that she wonders if freeing Barriss was worth the risk of the parasites breaking loose across the galaxy. In the situation where Ahsoka and Barriss were buried alive, Ahsoka had everything to gain by trying to reveal their location to their masters, so they could save them from their precarious situation. The battle was already won, and they had nothing to lose by trying to save their own lives. But with the brain parasites, Ahsoka's refusal to kill Barriss could have been seen as selfish, considering by not sacrificing this one life, she could have been endangering thousands of others. That's why she's still uncertain if she did the right thing. What if more situations come up in the future where trying to save the lives of the few she cares about could come at the cost of the many? Anakin consoles her and assures Ahsoka that she did the right thing. Of course he would say that. Ahsoka has Anakin's optimism when it comes to not letting anyone die, but unlike him, she also realizes that that's not always going to be a realistic goal. That kind of makes her more mature than Anakin, whose stubbornness to save everyone will ultimately be his downfall. The hardest part of this job is you can't save everyone.
Wow, that was heavy stuff. Speaking of heavy, maybe we should make a website to commemorate all the named clones who died across the series. And you know what's a good way to make that website? Squarespace. That's the way. This is the way. Squarespace is a fantastic, intuitive, online website builder that allows you to create beautiful websites for your business or personal hobby. Present your work using Squarespace's professional portfolio designs. Display projects in customizable galleries and add password-protected pages to share private works with clients. You can even present your videos from YouTube, Vimeo, and Animoto on your Squarespace site. Add an image overlay to your video to improve your website's load speed by waiting to embed video players until playback starts. Every design automatically includes a unique mobile presence that matches the overall style of your website, so your content will look great on every device, every time. And if you don't want that, you can always disable the mobile view from Website Manager. Buying a domain from Squarespace is so simple because there are no hidden fees or price hikes. Each domain comes with an ad-free parking page and free WHOIS privacy on eligible domains. Squarespace sells over 200 top-level domains, so you can find the perfect name for your website. Choose a URL that ends in .com, .net, .org, or you can always get a more specific one like .art if you want to be fancy. If you're ready to share your passions or promote your business with the rest of the world, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ShapeForList to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Let's move on to episode 9, which hopefully won't start with the Jedi being tortured. God damn it, I spoke too soon. So, we didn't have a ton of kind things to say about General Grievous in season 1. He was just kind of a bumbling Saturday morning cartoon villain and not much of a threat. But we did allude to a certain season 2 episode that did him a lot better. And this is that. Grievous Intrigue is such a bizarre episode because it feels like this should be his introduction to the show. The way he expresses to all the Jedi his personal philosophy and how he doesn't care for politics, only for their destruction. The way Obi-Wan duels him and points out all his character flaws and how he's just a pawn to Dooku as he does it. All of this feels like a proper introduction to the character of Grievous, and I feel like it's much more effective if this is the first time you see him in the show. So, I don't know, maybe watch this episode before the season 1 episodes he shows up in? At least this way you get to pretend he's an intimidating villain for 22 minutes before coming back to reality. Really solid, action-packed episode overall.
The episode ends with Grievous being stranded on the planet below while Obi-Wan hunts him down, and this really isn't important to what the episode is actually about, though it is cute to see the battle droids slowly losing power as they walk for days straight. However, the meat and potatoes of this episode lies with Rex getting shot. Not killed, but in no position to fight. So Jesse and friends get him shelter on farmland, but it turns out the farm is being closed down. No, it's open. It's just run by a deserter clone. It was unexpected to see a clone become a traitor in season 1. However, it's even harder to believe that this army, bred to follow any order, could spawn someone who just said, "No, I don't think I will." Rex and Cut don't get along at first because Rex is a stickler for following clone protocol, and Cut challenges him on whether or not said protocols is what Rex really wants out of life. Clones may have been made for combat, but they're human beings too. Human beings who can struggle with real human trauma. Cut watched his entire squad die, leaving him with PTSD of that day. So of course he'd want to get as far away as possible from this war. Cut decided he wanted to be something more than just another nameless, faceless number to get added to the death toll, or a named individual who I make a tasteless pun out of when they die. Rex grows to respect Cut so much that he decides to not turn him in. Cut reiterates to Rex that he has a choice to leave the army, but Rex reiterates that despite him being forced to join the war in the first place, it is his own choice to continue fighting for it, as the soldiers he fights alongside are his family, and this fight for Rex is one to ensure that said family has a future. This episode does a great job establishing Rex's character and values, because when you think about it, despite appearing in almost every episode, he really hasn't had much character. He's just been the clone captain up to this point. But this episode starts to give him more unique characterization. It's really cool to see.
Next episode is Lightsaber Lost, a one-off where Ahsoka's lightsaber is lost.
What do you mean you lost the
lightsaber?
Go find it.
There's really not much to say about this episode. It's just a cute little one where she teams up with this old-timey turtle Jedi to find her lightsaber. It's neat to see her brash nature contrast with his slow and steady method. And together they contend with some kooky characters like Italian fishman stereotype. And these ladies who even as kids we just assumed were lesbians. This is a good character building episode for Ahsoka, but nothing too substantial or amazing.
You want something amazing and substantial? How about the next arc where we go to Mandalore? Mandalorian streaming on Disney Plus. This is the way. The Boba Fett sang my beard. Yeah, Mandalore is kind of a big deal for the endgame of this show, and many later Star Wars products. As such, the episodes of this arc are a must-watch. Besides, don't you want to learn about Obi-Wan's steamy past with the Duchess of Mandalore Satine? But I'm getting ahead of myself. Mandalore is actually neutral in the conflict between the Republic and the Separatists.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
Satine is a pacifist who hates murder and violence with a passion. Not all of her people seem to share this sentiment, as a Republic cruiser is attacked by a Mandalorian warrior. Obi-Wan is tasked to find out why a soldier from a neutral world committed an act of war. The Prime Minister of Mandalore, Almec, remember him, he's going to be important for later, informs Obi-Wan that the warriors of Mandalore's past have all died out. Obi-Wan reminds Almec that Jango Fett is a character who existed.
Jango Fett was a common bounty hunter. How he acquired that armor is beyond me.
Well, screw you, old man. Jango's no pretender Mandalorian. He is a foundling.
Obi-Wan and Satine also get caught up in a terrorist attack while strolling through Mandalore, and the guy who did it decides to jump from a high place and kill himself rather than get caught. Yeah, I think we can stop pretending Clone Wars is a kid's show at this point. This sort of horrific violence and shocking content is just going to become more and more commonplace as the show goes on. Obi-Wan and Satine travel to Mandalore's moon to investigate this attack. While there, Obi-Wan gets captured by a Mandalorian who sounds exactly like him, but gruff.
I am here on a diplomatic mission.
This one's harmless enough without his lightsaber.
Why couldn't they have gotten literally any other voice actor to voice this guy? Speaking of weird voice acting decisions, the leader of this terrorist group of Mandos known as Death Watch is none other than Jon Favreau. It's kind of wild that he would go on to create The Mandalorian after voicing Pre Vizsla, who's one of the most prominent Mandalorians in canon. But at the same time, his voice is a little jarring to hear coming out of this show, mostly because of how distinct and easily recognizable it is. Also, this episode introduces the Darksaber, the exact same one that Gus Fring uses in The Mandalorian. Also, Sabine uses it, but I don't give any shits at all. Pretty good episode, but the next one in the arc is fantastic. This one might be my favorite of season 2 because it just has it all. Action, intrigue, humor, and great character moments.
Obi-Wan and Anakin are tasked with safely escorting Satine to Coruscant, much to Satine's dismay, because the Jedi have gone from wise monks dedicated to solving conflict with as little violence as possible, to interns for the Republic. She's spitting facts. Obi-Wan retorts by bringing up the fact that there's no reasoning with battle droids and the unhinged warmongers that run them. He's also spitting facts. Satine is right to not want to side with the Republic, as that would result in Mandalore getting invaded by the Separatists. And yet, there really is no peaceful way to end the Clone War. Believe me, Padme tries in multiple Season 3 episodes. I love that this show is not afraid to portray that there really is no good guys or right choices when it comes to war. These Mandalore episodes do a much better job at bringing that to light than the Lemur episodes from Season 1. For me personally, I think that fighting to end this war is a necessary evil, because with Sith Lords running the show, peace was never an option. However, the Jedi should not be at the front lines of this war, not only because they're losing their way, but because they're walking down the path of their own self-destruction, thanks to a certain scheming Sheev. Alternatively, you can ignore the ethical questions of this fictional war and just enjoy the flirtatious undertones of Obi-Wan and Satine's arguments, like Anakin is. Yeah, he's caught on that these two have had an intimate past together.
It's fun to see Anakin tease Obi-Wan over his former flame, but it's also really nice to see the two of them connect on an emotional level. Anakin, the wife guy, is dumbfounded that Obi-Wan didn't follow his heart and stay with Satine.
It's obvious you had feelings for her. Surely that would affect your decision. Oh, it did.
And don't call me Shirley.
But in the end, Obi-Wan chose to remain loyal to the Jedi Order, which required him to leave her behind. I love how much dimension this adds to Obi-Wan's character. He was always presented as a much more staunch believer in the Jedi Order's teachings and principles than his apprentice or his old master. But it would be foolish to assume that he never experienced love or the temptation to follow said love. When he tells Satine that he would have left the Jedi Order had she said the word, it's really powerful because, again, it's not the sort of thing you would ever expect from this guy. But it just shows how intense and real the love between the two of them was.
Speaking of intensity, wait, is it kind of weird how most of the script has just been us going back and forth by playing off each other's paragraphs? Like, you say, hey, this thing is intense, and I'm like, speaking of intensity, I'm just kind of like, playing off your words, and that's the most we have in terms of playing off of each other.
Dude, it's still a collab. We're both working on it together, dude. It's all like
but like I feel like you and William have more back and forth banter.
Yeah, it's just because we have like this rapport going. You know, we've done a bunch of collabs before. This is like we don't. You and I don't do that many collabs, dude. Like
I just thought we'd have more natural chemistry.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean,
I've known you my entire life.
Well, you know, dude. I mean, I think it's fine, dude. I think the transitions are fine. By the way, what else happened in this?
So speaking of intensity, there are these horrifying spider droids that have been smuggled on board, and they end up killing some clones in very horrifying ways. Mixer's insides have got to be all mixed up, and Deadeye, more like Dead Guy, cause this droid puppeteers his corpse. Classic Clone Wars. The smuggled droids were brought on board courtesy of this guy, Merrick, who Obi-Wan figured out was the traitor by pointing out that he's the one person that the droids aren't hostile towards. Does this remind anyone else of the ending of Death Note? Regardless, this leads to a funny hostage situation. Wait, I probably shouldn't describe a hostage situation as funny. Or maybe I should, because the way Merrick is dealt with is perhaps the funniest moment in the entire show, while simultaneously being such dark foreshadowing. Satine escapes from Merrick's grip and directs a blaster at him, while Kenobi has his saber ready to slice. But Merrick points out that killing him would make them both hypocrites, considering that they're both supposed to be pacifists. They can't let him get away because he has a detonator for blowing up the ship. So who, I say, among us is willing to bite the bullet and brand themselves a cold-blooded killer?
Oh, there's a big surprise!
Anakin. What? He was gonna blow up the ship.
Anakin swooping in to kill Merrick and then deliver that one-liner is so fucking funny. It makes me want to merge without looking. It's also funny how everyone just sounds disappointed at Anakin. Just such a great scene from a great episode. But the show also knows it's a dark moment for Anakin, and they play a bit of the Imperial March. Ooh, baby, that's some good foreshadowing right there. And the arc ends off with a solid finale, where Satine is trying to assert the need for Mandalore's continued neutrality before the Senate. But she keeps experiencing setbacks. Recordings are tampered with, she gets framed for murder, Palpatine and Mas Amedda act like a couple of smug assholes the whole time. It's a solid way to close off the arc, and a great indication of just how idiotic the Senate is. We really just need one guy to be the Senate. That would solve all of our problems. Not yet. Now for episode 15. Like we said at the beginning of this video, none of the episodes in season 2 are actually bad, but if we had to name the clear weakest one, it's easily this one. Oh no, that Anaconda guy from season 1 got murdered and Padme's got to figure out who done it. But at the same time, we have this weird egg-shaped inspector guy who's handling the case, and like, I straight up don't even know what to make of him. He seems like he'd be a purposely annoying character on paper, but he's not nearly obnoxious enough to fill that role. But at the same time, he's not likable or entertaining. He's voiced by Tom Kenny doing one of his usual Tom Kenny voices, which is kinda neat, but also feels extremely out of place in Star Wars. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't get this guy at all. And overall, the mystery and eventual reveal in this episode just aren't that interesting. There's some neat lore and world building tidbits, like how Kamino previously wasn't a part of the Galactic Senate, but weaseled their way in since they made the clone army. It's not bad, it's just perfectly whatever, and you can skip it without missing anything.
It was funny when Palpatine was smiling when Padme had a gun pointed at her. That's it for this episode. Now, moving forward, or should I say, backward, to the very beginning. We've reached the first episode of the show. Chronologically speaking, of course. Back in season 1, they made a precursor episode to the movie. Well, this is a precursor to the precursor, detailing how Anakin and Obi-Wan had to fight to get onto Crystalsis in the first place. I'm pretty sure they just made this a prequel with Crystalsis because it would save on modeling budget. But it's also kind of funny how both episode 16s of seasons 1 and 2 are prequels to the Clone Wars movie. If I had a nickel for every time that happened, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice, right? Yeah, I can do a doof impression too. That's double Doofenshmirtz coming at you Fridays!
What the f***? No, we're not doing that.
Oh, I mean, it just kind of sounded like it would be a natural sort of TV sitcom format.
Pim, shut the fuck up. I'm not doing double doof Fridays with you, Pim. We've been recording for an hour, Pim. Pim, I'm exhausted. Read the script.
But look, there's a kitty outside!
Oh shit, there is.
Anywho, Anakin is tasked by Obi-Wan to get down to the planet for Basil Oregano! Who literally has no reason to be there, so I don't know why he's here. It's not even a relevant detail to this episode's plot, because it's all about the space battle, in which Anakin finds a worthy opponent in the Separatist leader, Admiral Trench. Unlike most Separatist leaders who are just goofy or lame, Trench is a legitimately intimidating presence, who can even put the headstrong Anakin on the defensive. That is, until they get their hands on the stealth ship, aka the coolest ship in LEGO Star Wars 3 The Clone Wars. This was a way better gold brick reward than a fountain of infinite studs when you most likely have already bought everything. It's cool to see this episode pay homage to naval warfare for a change, and with the stealth ship's unique set of skills and advice from Admiral Yularen, Anakin successfully squishes the Spider-Man. Which, of course, I knew going into this episode was going to happen, because I saw Star the Clone Wars Wars in theaters. This isn't the end of Trench, though. He'll be back, and it'll be much more substantial than the time I said Anaconda would be important in certain circles, because by important, I meant he'd be dead.
Yeah, a pretty decent episode overall, which is how I would describe the next episode. I think this one is a bit of a fan favorite because it's a really neat tribute to Akira Kurosawa, whose films were one of the biggest inspirations for the original Star Wars. And as such, we now get an episode that's basically just the plot of Seven Samurai, where Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka team up with bounty hunters to train villagers to defend themselves from pirates. And not just any pirates, we're talking about the return of Hondo Naka! It's been too long since we've seen you, you sweet prince. Everyone loves this episode for the homage, and for Hondo, and the introduction of cool new bounty hunters who show up in later episodes as well. But this was never really one of my favorite episodes. As a matter of fact, Patrick and I didn't actually know about it as kids, because I think we missed the week it aired and then forgot to check it out until like many years later. So it's clearly not essential viewing, and I think it's also just a little slow and predictable. If you know the plot of Seven Samurai, you know how this is gonna turn out. Plus this one villager just keeps whining and it's kind of annoying. The guy who sounds like Iroh should have gotten more screen time than him. But it's a perfectly fine episode and a lovely tribute to Kurosawa. Speaking of lovely tributes, are you ready for a fucking Godzilla homage? Because here it is. Apparently Dave Filoni really wanted to do a Godzilla storyline, and that manifested in the form of the Zillow Beast Ark.
The episode starts out with the Republic launching the Star Wars equivalent to the atomic bomb. It was only supposed to affect droids, but it ends up unearthing the titular Zillow Beast. Not only is the Zillow Beast a cool design and a neat action scene set piece, what with it being a giant kaiju, but its scales are completely indestructible, to the point that not even a lightsaber can penetrate it. Clearly, this beast cannot be left to its own devices, and yet, killing it is not an option for the Jedi, as this beast might be the last of its kind. I can understand this being a conflict for most Jedi, but in this episode, the Jedi in question is Mace fucking Windex. He shouldn't have any qualms about violence considering that time he decapitated a man. I would really love for him to have some sort of comeuppance for that action. Wink wink, nudge nudge. The Dougs, you know, the Sebulba people, try to kill off the beast the same way their ancestors did by gassing it to death. And it did not go very well because if they played LEGO Star Wars 3, they'd realize he's covered in gold LEGO bricks. And you must use a super rapid fire or heat laser weapon to destroy those first. I know this has nothing to do with anything, but I gotta tell ya, it's super bonkers how the Zillow Beast is the final boss of a LEGO Star Wars game. You go from Anakin or Obi-Wan being the final boss in the Darth Vader level, to Palpatine being the final boss in the sequel. Okay, those make sense to be final bosses. The Zillow Beast is just some random monster that only shows up in 2 episodes, and it's the final boss of the 3rd game in the trilogy. Oh yeah, you heard me right. It shows up in 2 episodes, cause at the end of this one, Palpatine is very interested in trying to get the scales of this creature in order to make an indestructible armor. And considering how easily stormtroopers are mowed down, I do not think that this plan panned out at all.
This armor's useless. Why do we even wear it?
Despite that, he tries nonetheless to figure out how to synthesize a new armor from the Zillow Beast scales. And in order to accomplish this, Palpatine has the brilliant idea of taking it to Coruscant. You know, we all love to rag on Palpatine's stupid plans all the time, but at least his plans always end up working out in the end. This one, however, this has gotta be his stupidest, most short-sighted, idiotic idea ever. And I've seen Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, so that first Zillow Beast episode was kinda neat, but ultimately a little boring and underwhelming. Plus, they definitely should have used a different Jedi than Mace Windu as the moral compass that doesn't want to kill, since it kinda feels out of character for him. Maybe like Obi-Wan, Plo Koon, Luminara, Aayla Secura, Yoda. Actually, literally anyone other than Mace would have been better. So whatever, a pretty standard episode. But you have no idea what's coming next. The Zillow Beast Strikes Back is the most batshit insane episode of the entire show thus far. It feels like a fanfic they decided to animate. This random kaiju forms a personal vendetta against Palpatine and breaks out of containment because of course it does.
Looks like Cosmos and his belt really are lost. Good luck trying to understand that joke, you stinking animals.
Its only goal, aside from wrecking shit up, is to wreck Palpatine in particular up. That's what makes this concept so hysterical. The main villain of all of Star Wars, left to contend with a fucking kaiju that wants him dead. And he obviously can't use his Sith powers to escape, so he just has to hope to God Anakin can get him out of this precarious situation. At one point, he has to ride on R2 in order to escape. You can watch Return of the Jedi now and be like, hey Lois, remember that time the Emperor had to ride on R2-D2's back to escape the giant Godzilla snake monster? Just so incredible. This episode is a boatload of fun and one of my favorites of the entire season. Dave Filoni and George Lucas even joked that the Zillow Beast somehow knew Palpatine was a Sith Lord and was trying to warn Coruscant, which is absolutely fucking wild. And honestly, I don't see why it can't be true. A true banger of an episode, not much more to say.
It seems my wish has come true. Mace Windu gets to be punished for his unjust desecration of Jango Fett's neck. As a kid, I always thought Jango Fett was cooler than Boba. Probably because Jango never fell into the Sarlacc pit. He went out on the field of battle and was unfairly killed before his time. And of course, I was not the only kid who thought this, as the orphan Windu left behind probably has some choice harsh words they'd want to say to him. But actions speak louder than words, so Boba Fett has made it his mission to kill Master Windu, even if it ultimately won't work because it's not Revenge of the Sith. Nevertheless, he can get pretty close in this arc about the return of Boba Fett. He hides amidst the clone cadets sabotaging the Republic ship Windu's on in order to assassinate him. It's neat seeing the earliest stage of clone training when they're all little babies, and it's cool that they brought back Daniel Logan to voice him and the other young clones. What's not neat is the haircut on their supervisor, like yeesh. Clones have the option to go with whatever look they want under their helmet, and he chose this yee-ass haircut. Just shave it at that point. Speaking of close shaves, Windu has a close shave with death. Yet we can't always have nice things, so a clone dies in his place. He has no name, so he gets no pun. So that means innocent clone blood is now left on Boba's hands. And considering that these guys are sort of his brothers, it weighs on the young lad. Now as a kid, I thought these episodes just made Boba Fett even lamer, considering that he feels bad for his victims. But nowadays, I realize that he's more of a three-dimensional character this way. Just because he's a bad guy doesn't mean he doesn't have some semblance of sympathy. With the Mandalorian episodes he's in, we've already seen him go from a completely evil badass to a mostly badass anti-hero. But the roots of him not being entirely evil can be traced back to Clone Wars.
To be fair, I don't think Boba Fett was ever really evil in the original trilogy. He's just a bounty hunter and he likes money. But the sentiment's still there. There's a lot of tension and emotion here, and I think this arc might just have the strongest characterization for Boba Fett in the entire series. The way he doesn't want to kill innocents and only focuses on getting revenge on Windu, the way he denies being anything like the clone cadets since he's the unaltered clone, his own person, and the betrayal that sprouts up between him and the cadets he tricked is really powerful stuff. We even get reintroduced to Aurra Sing, who takes a much more prominent role here than she did in the season 1 finale working for Cad Bane. This is a great first episode for a really strong arc, and I'ma keep it real with you, Chiefs. A lot of fans seem to say that while this arc is really good, the middle episode is boring and drawn out. While I agree that it's the weakest in terms of fleshing out Boba Fett, which is the whole point of this arc, honestly, it's probably my favorite episode of the 3. Anakin and Mace Windu get trapped under some rubble, so it's up to R2 to get help. Along the way, our lovable, mischievous scamp of a droid fucks with Boba and Aurra and their annoying, stinky coworker in increasingly hilarious and elaborate ways. He also attaches a Gundark to a ship and then sends it flying. Like, come the fuck on, this episode is hilarious. There are later episodes in the series where the creators think R2 can carry the entire plot, and then no, he absolutely can't in spite of his best efforts. But this episode is an exception. It's so damn fun and even kind of tense. I mean, okay, we know that Anakin and Windu are gonna be fine, sure, but there's still a good deal of pressure for R2, who ends up having to fly all the way back to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant and get in a fight with another droid in order to tell everyone that Anakin's in trouble. Like, whatever important meeting this was, we got bigger problems. Yeah, fun episode, even if it is kind of a shame that Boba takes a backseat during his own arc. But the third episode makes up for that.
Despite bringing down an entire Republic cruiser, Mace Windu is still alive, which means Boba Fett hasn't gotten his revenge, and Aurra Sing hasn't gotten her money for a dead Jedi. So the bounty hunters use hostages to lure the Jedi out. And if they don't bring Windu, they're going to kill them all off, one by one. Starting with...
That was Pawns.
No! Pawns! My best friend! Since Anakin and Mace need some R&R, the adventurous trackdown of the hunters' whereabouts fall to Ahsoka and Plo Koon. Meanwhile, said hunters seek refuge with Hondo! Hondo's dynamic with Aurra is great, as the two of them were exes. Hondo even mistakes Boba as one of his own offspring for a second. So Hondo and Aurra catch up with each other over drinks, while Boba has to drink juice. And the Stinkmeister is shot to death because he was talking too much. Unfortunately, or fortunately, his friend he was talking to is one of the patrons at the bar Ahsoka and Plo Koon are investigating at. It's kind of weird that they had to figure out their location through this roundabout way, considering Aurra wants the Jedi to find them. So why doesn't she just say where they are? That's a little bizarre.
But it does lead to a really cool, tense showdown between Boba and Aurra and Plo Koon and Ahsoka. And then in its aftermath, Boba's left behind by Aurra, feeling more betrayed and heartbroken than ever. Even though he's trying to murder someone during this arc, you just feel so bad for him and how misguided he is. Hondo even encourages him to do the right thing and tell the Jedi where the hostages are, which is a nice moment for his character. As a side note, I love how frequently Hondo shifts between hero and villain through the series, simply based on what'll earn him the most profits. It's such a fun aspect of his character, and it's nice that even after the Kurosawa episode where he was a full-on baddie, here he's acting with morality and honor. It's really nice. And it's nice to see Boba do the right thing in the end, as Ahsoka takes Aurra down and mutilates Slave One. Oh, sorry. Boba Fett's starship. Silly me, how did I forget its official name? Oh yeah, Bossk is in this arc. He's pretty cool. While this arc is a really good way to end season 2, I do find myself a bit unsatisfied by how rushed the last scene is. Boba admits to Mace Windu that he did bad things in pursuit of his revenge, but that Mace started it by killing his father, and that he'll never forgive him. And what does this chucklefuck say in response?
Well, you're going to have to.
No, he absolutely does not have to. You could just empathize with this lost, scared child and apologize for beheading his father. But no, he doesn't do that because he's a gigantic prick. Which, yeah, that is his character, and it's not like this is even the worst thing he does in the series. More on that in season 5. But dude, a high-ranking member of the Jedi Order like you could stand to show a little compassion. It's astounding that this show made Mace Windu worse. Before he was just kind of boring and a mild asshole, now he's still boring and a huge dick, except when a random kaiju's life is threatened. Just admit that you guys only like him because he looks like Samuel L. Jackson and he has a purple lightsaber. Anyway, yeah, the scene is over in a minute, and that's how season 2 ends. Weird note to end on, but an overall great arc. And that's Season 2. A huge improvement over Season 1, with no real bad episodes, just a couple weaker ones. The characters are becoming more compelling, especially Ahsoka, who's showing incredible maturity and growth. And Anakin, who's leaning a little bit further towards the dark side, but not too much yet. We got great characterization for Obi-Wan through his relationship with Satine. Boba Fett is interesting now. Cad Bane is a Chad. R2-D2's a Chad. Grievous does something cool for once. Jar Jar didn't show up in the season even once. Overall, a really good time. This obviously isn't the best season, but it's a great indicator of how the series only gets better and more compelling as it goes along.
I have no idea why we thought this season was bad as kids. This season really is an improvement on every aspect of the show, except for Ventress, who also mysteriously never showed up once. Even if this season is not the best one, it is one of the most consistent. The best of the series is yet to come, but every later season has at least one very stinky arc in there. So props for this season that consists of nothing but unending quality. I love Star Wars The Clone Wars Season 2, Rise of the Bounty Hunters. It clearly delivered on the subtitle, and then some. Now, we have reached the ultimatum of every Clone Wars series retrospective episode, which is the lightning recap of which episodes to watch and which ones you can skip. Episodes 1 through 3 are a must-watch. They're great, Cad Bane is operating in top form, and there's some solid development between Anakin and Ahsoka here, especially in the middle episode. For the Geonosis arc, you can honestly skip 4. It's completely unnecessary, but not terrible. Episode 5 through 8 are a must-watch though. It's not only a great story, but it takes Anakin to some pretty dark places, and it puts Ahsoka through some pretty dark events that strengthen her character. Episode 9 isn't totally necessary, it's just kind of a regular episode where Grievous acts more badass than usual for some reason. Episode 10, however, is a must-watch, in order to get any sort of idea of who Rex is as a person. Plus, it's neat to see a different angle on the clones by seeing Cut make a life for himself. Plus, if you want to watch Bad Batch, you'll need this episode to understand the second episode of the show. Episode 11 is a cute and good Ahsoka story, but it's definitely not necessary. 12 through 14 are absolutely necessary because of how crucial Satine and Mandalore are to the overall arc of the series. You can honestly skip 15, 16, and 17. They're all fine but unnecessary one-offs, even though 17 is a fan favorite. So if you're interested in seeing more of Hondo and the Kurosawa tribute, yeah, you can see it. I can't stop you. Episode 18 is kind of unnecessary, and you could just start with the Zillow Beast storyline from it being on Coruscant. That's the really fun episode that we'd highly recommend. Watch this and constantly have to remind yourself that this episode is 100% canon. Finally, the Boba Fett arc probably isn't crucial for the overall arc of the series, but it's a great story that you should definitely check out, regardless. And with that, Season 2 is done. Join us next time for Season 3, the season that starts out not very good and then becomes better than the show has ever been in the second half. I'm Pappy G. Subscribe to my channel and I will give you a cookie. That is not a truth. I don't have any means to provide a cookie for every single person who subscribes. But I will make a community post and it will have a JPEG picture of a cookie in it if like 5 people subscribe.
And I'm Shay Frillis Productions. I promise no cookies to anyone ever.
No fucking cookies.
That's it, the end. Good night, Tri-State Galaxy. See ya next time.